Amalia, founder of S.T.E.M Braids and Beyond, and host of the Silver Bullet S.T.E.M podcast. Today, I have an incredible guest. He considers himself not a typical STEM job, STEM person or STEM job, but we're going to break apart an incredible conversation today. If you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe and share with friends. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Brian Oglesby. I'm the president and CEO of the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council. We certify minority business enterprises and connect them with our corporate membership to create greater opportunities in the supply chain. We do a lot of work in terms of expanding supply chain, making sure the mathematical notion of ROI is present in supplier diversity and DEI, and making sure that we take the math and make it a real thing for our suppliers.
Okay, so
I can be reached at, and I'm going to use some high tech approaches to make sure people get this. Brian at nstemacademy.org.
oh, nice.
I use that high tech post-it thing with a little bit of a sticky polymer that some STEM person created, by the way. So I can be reached at Brian at emsdc.org, or you can check out our website at www.emsdc.org.
Are you also on LinkedIn?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn at Brian K. Oglesby.
Okay.
Listed on this bubble. All my social media is Brian K. Oglesby, no pseudonyms.
I love it. So, what does a day in your job today look like? I know you have a STEM background, but what does your job today look like?
Today, there are no 2 days that are alike. My essential job is to advocate, develop, connect, and certify minority business enterprises and connect them to opportunities amongst corporate buyers, larger corporations that seek out minority suppliers because they understand that the diverse supply chain is a less risky one and more profitable one. So I spend my days cultivating relationships, making sure we have opportunity, understanding what the opportunities are in the marketplace, not both, but locally, regionally, and globally. I'm part of a national organization. I'm the president of affiliate council that covers all of Pennsylvania, Delaware, and southern New Jersey from Princeton south. Part of 23 national affiliates of the National Minority Supplier Development Council, and I also have a global presence with our counterparts in Canada, the UK, South Africa, and Australia, as well as the GSDA and the SDP, which are European-based supplier diversity and think tank organizations that we work together to try to create opportunities for our minority business enterprises to get deeper market penetration and become level competitors of majority firms in those same markets.
Okay.
So the activity surrounds all those things, tons of meetings, tons of speaking engagements, tons of analytics. I'm doing a gap analysis for diverse spend for a major corporation. Later, I'll be appearing at a World Trade Center event. I'll be doing, I do presentations in front of chambers of commerce and different larger corporations, advisory councils, planning conferences. Over the last week and a half, I've been in 4 countries, 6 cities in 4 countries. Well, 5 countries if you count the US, and then I'm heading to Canada tomorrow, in 2 days actually. So 6 countries in 8 days, talking and meeting with people about supplier diversity and the numbers that involve.
Okay, so someone viewing may be able to benefit from this. When you say that you certify businesses, is like the MBE, the MW, is that what you're referring to? And
We are the certifier of record for minority business enterprises nationally. Our certification is recognized not only nationally, but globally. There are a lot of other certified entities that certify minority businesses, but they generally do it on a localized basis, or if you're on the federal side, you're certified as a DBE. And then we have corresponding certifying entities such as WeBank that certifies women. We have councils that cover the LGBTQ plus community, veterans, disabled veterans, and the like. And then we coordinate our activities with a lot of the chambers of commerce, the ethnic-based chambers, smaller regional economic development authorities, government entities, and whatnot. So we do a lot of collaborative work with those certifying entities.
Okay, so go ahead and tell me how you got into STEM and what your STEM field is.
My STEM field is basically economics as an economist, understanding how money and commerce impacts the world and and how commerce impacts business and the like. So there's an amalgamation of a lot of different data sources. So if you take the acronym STEM, we are clearly in the M part. I started off as I've always been kind of a science person, a big time science nerd growing up. My dream as a child was to be an astrophysicist or an astronomer, or center fielder for the Philadelphia Phillies. It was somewhere on the spectrum. And over time, I had a lot of aptitude in math and science. And then my interest meandered from one place to another. And then I wound up in this place maybe 15 to 20 years ago, where I was tapped to take over an economic development program in a municipality in southern New Jersey. And it required me to do a lot of mathematical modeling and forecasting. And much like the weather, economics forecasting is about what the economic conditions are going to be over time. Bring an umbrella, bring a shovel, wear a tank top, put on some sunblock. And we're coming up with these predictions of what the economics will look like and what we need to do and develop in those spaces as the economy grows, changes, or declines. And you try to make those decisions, you try to make policy decisions and programmatic decisions based on what's happening next. So you really have to do a lot of forecast modeling. You try to keep it as simple as possible. Casual projection models, I won't go too crazy with the terminology, but there are ways that you can calculate things and predict things and use statistics and whatnot. So I kind of went from the S to the T, skipped over to E and went to the M. So, and there's always kind of an element of all those things because now we're talking about multiple industries that are heavily involved in STEM. So having an understanding of the S-T-E and the M can, as a group, allows me to operate in a lot of different spaces and a lot of different industries, and math being the true language of everything, in my opinion. You can kind of figure out how things are going by getting into the math of it.
Okay, so what inspired you to pursue STEM? I know you said that you were good in math and science, but I actually had a guest who was an well-rounded academic student, and his first job was a janitor. But he wanted to figure out so something inspired him to pursue the field he did. What was yours?
Actually, the funny thing is, when I graduated from college, my first job was a social worker because I, come from humble means, and there were a lot of people in my old neighborhoods that needed help, and I felt compelled to try to go back to those neighborhoods as a social worker and help people out and help people get out of whatever situation they're in. But I learned that I could probably be more effective if I pursued philanthropy as an approach, as an economic approach. Not necessarily becoming a wealthy oligarch, but understanding that I could take on a larger role in economics and impact things on a broader scale and help a lot more people than just doing the one-on-one things. The social work and the on-the-ground stuff is certainly necessary, but I felt better that I could utilize my skills mathematically and scientifically to come up with programs and structures that can help people in a much broader way than I could do it just walking indoors and doing things one-on-one. I think I was inspired to get into this space once I got to grad school, and I was at University of Pennsylvania. I had a very seasoned professor emeritus at Penn who saw a lot of work that I was doing and a lot of the things I was producing academically and said, "You, sir, are an economist." And I said, I didn't study economics in college. I did it as a minor. And then I did some graduate work, and he said, "No, you, sir, are an economist. This is exactly what you are doing." So I was almost knighted by a professor emeritus. You are an economist, and I just gotten myself defined that way. And quite frankly, the work that I do is purely economic. I've done the forecasting, I've done the business valuation, I've done the market valuation. If you could see the television that's in my office right now, one of the networks that shows nothing but financial information is constantly on, and I'm always crunching numbers in my head and waking up in the middle of the night, like, oh my gosh, valuation. So it really is a calling that found me more than I found it. Like I said, I envision myself as being, the traditional STEM person who's doing high tech stuff or staring at the stars. By the way, I have a son who's a rocket scientist, so he's like a superstar of STEM. So I'll shamelessly plug him a little bit more, but it's a space where it's super important. The type of work that I do is predictive of what's happening next in the marketplace. And we're positioning our companies to be first in line rather than 17th, because now they're being prescient. They're forecasting out what type of product or good and services are going to be needed in the marketplace down the road as opposed to right now. We can focus on what's hot in the marketplace, but we also can predict that those things that are flaring hot will get cold, and we'll worry about what's next.
Absolutely. So you said that economics was your minor. What was your major?
My major, very eclectic. I was a pre-law with a minor in biology because I started off as a biology pre-med major in college, and then I decided I would go into legal studies, and so I went to pre-law, and I had enough credits to have a minor in biology, and then I have a master's degree in organizational dynamics, which is a combination of industrial psychology and a couple of other disciplines, and then my final master's degree is in portfolio development, business development with a concentration in economics. Then I have a certificate for forecasting in NGOs from Harvard, and just a part, and then a whole bunch of other certificates, Six Sigma stuff, and anything that caught my interest and someone else would pay for. I kind of pursued academically. So I've been fortunate to be in a space where I've thrown a lot of my various interests were thrown into academic work that I've done, and I had an opportunity to some degree of doing some stuff a la carte to build out the type of disciplines that I want to have. Because in STEM, you have to be multidisciplinary. You have to be able to operate in a lot of different spaces in order to be effective. I mean, the other parts of STEM are contingent upon math. The things you learn in science, technology, and engineering is heavily math. And here's another shameless plug of my son. My son is a senior at MIT, and the math is the most important element of his aerospace astronautical engineering major. And he has to know the math. If he doesn't know the math, all the other things that he's doing doesn't work, the material science and all those other things. So I speak in the true language of the universe, which is math, and I just utilize it in terms of developing and expanding businesses.
I love what you said, the true language of the universe. That's so dope. What I see a parallel in how you're describing economics is the way some engineers plan cities, and we're doing the future building out, but you're doing it from a economic and financial business perspective.
You plan the city, we're planning what businesses need to be there. We're evaluating whether there's egress and ingress from a seaport where we can get goods and services. What type of natural resources do you have available in that city that you're planning that we can utilize to build out the technical infrastructure of that city? And how does that impact the ability for investors to come in and invest in that city's infrastructure? What resources are available to help you guys in the planning of the city to build that the way you want to? What's realistic, and what's realistic today, and what can be planned for tomorrow? So they go hand in hand. You know, you call when you're planning a city, call an economist or a group of them. Now, don't get them into forecasting, because we all get it wrong, because it's a forecast, not a fact cast. But we can put you within acceptable ranges and minimize your risk. And as you're building out that city, we're building out what that city is going to look like, how that city is going to run, how that city is going to be funded.
Okay, so let's go a little deeper. What did your childhood look like? We know that most underrepresented communities don't always have the best childhoods. What can you tell us about your childhood?
I was the youngest of four, single mom. Grew up in Philadelphia. My mother is an RN, top of her class at Drexel University.
Okay, all right.
We didn't have much. We were like the wealthy poor kids. We lived in the same neighborhood, the same apartment complexes, but we had a little bit more. And the thing that I was gifted from my mother was very well read and scholarly. And the greatest gift she ever bought me and my siblings was the World Books 1976 encyclopedias.
Yes.
And I read them cover to cover as a 5-year-old. Just because I was just intellectually curious. I read A to Z and the index and everything in between. I can't imagine how many days I actually spent reading those World Book encyclopedias. And it was the beginning of a journey of curiosity. My mother was always would take us to the library. Again, we didn't have much. We had the World Books at home, but she would take us to the library every Saturday morning. And let us have at it. And I was always drawn towards the science stuff and the universe and, weather and tornadoes. And so I was doing things like building wind tunnels and stuff as a kid, and trying to build wind tunnels kind of hard with incense, but still building wind tunnels outside. Luckily, the part of Philadelphia that we lived in was very outdoorsy, so you get to go outside, put your hands in the dirt, explore things, learn about the bugs and the types of rocks and things like that. Went to a lot of different schools growing up, as my mom looked for safe and enriching schools for us. I went through 8 schools in my 12 years, K through 12. And we moved around a lot as she rose in her profession and her income. We moved to better and better places. So I actually had a very unique childhood in the sense that I started off in the inner city, and by the time I finished high school, I was living in the suburbs. A very inner ring suburb right across the street from the city, but in a suburban school district, which is a sea change from an urban school district. Although I did my first 2 years at Central High in Philadelphia, shouts out to Central High, 248. I finished my last couple of years at Cheltenham High School. So I had an opportunity to really run the gamut of the economic stratas and things like that. And, in retrospect, you look back, it was a very unique experience because most people in where I come from stay where they are. Stay in the same neighborhood,